Hi everybody, and welcome back to the glory, the bliss and the solitude of the English countryside. And let me tell you the best thing about the English countryside. It's that you could be anywhere and simultaneously nowhere. You can all relate to this landscape in some way, wherever you live. But at the same time, you have absolutely no idea where I am. But I'll tell you where I am. This is a village with both beautiful scenery and a beautiful name. What happens if you cross Fisherman's Village with an old medieval owner of this land? Well, you get the name Fisherton de la Mer. Sounds very exotic, doesn't it? But with these menacing rain clouds above me, it could only be southern England. In fact, we're only about 25 minutes from Salisbury, which has its own Fisherton, which originates from a time before the cathedral, Fisherton Anger. And the de la Mer part of this village's name was added to distinguish it from that Fisherton. I'm just making my way down the footpath through the old clanky farm gate towards the village itself, and in particular the focal point of this village, St. Nicholas's Church, which I'm afraid to say has been disused for more than 40 years now. There is an ever-diminishing fine line between a church which is disused and one which is used only for perhaps one service a month here in our villages. I wonder what your experiences are of that. I remember when I first started playing the organ in villages, straight after finishing at Oxford, I would have to drive between various churches so that I could play for maybe 3 services in the morning and then an evensong in the afternoon or the evening. In fact, the first service I played for was on Christmas Day in 2018 when I finished at university. And then things led on from there to lots of different villages which I would play for. And that's how I kind of built up a knowledge of all of these different villages. I eventually consolidated so that I was just playing at one parish. And then I changed and played at St. Martin's Church, which was much closer to home. I felt I should travel less when the entire exhaust pipe fell off my car on the way back from a wedding. That's a story for another time. Anyway, here we are in this rather damp looking village of Fisherton de la Mer. I fear that I may be about to get absolutely soaked. Luckily I've brought a little waxed cap. And the river here is something of a torrent with a lovely bench right next to it. No such thing as bad weather. only inappropriate clothing. And you can see the first views of St. Nicholas's Church opening up there, over the bank. Luckily there isn't much in my bag except for a flask of coffee and 2 gold bars, so not too much to get wet. But hopefully things hold out okay. Think of the life this building has had, and of course the lives that it's seen, and who've worshipped here for perhaps 800 years. Originally it had a wooden bell turret, but in the 19th century the whole place was renovated and restored, and that was changed with a stone upper section, and you can actually see how the weight of the stone has required more bracing around the tower. It's a splendid position for a church, even on a day like today. In fact, especially on a day like today. It takes on a completely different atmosphere. Just in the distance you can probably hear a road, that's the A303, which runs towards Exeter, which is barely a few hundred metres from this village. It's interesting how the world has got so much smaller since the invention of cars and mechanisation, the internal combustion engine. Of course, in the past, families would have stayed local to their village and they would have worked the land, whereas nowadays so much of that land which we passed just now would be overlooked. I'm pleased to have managed to find my way to the church before getting too wet. And as I mentioned, this is a building which is now what we might describe as a disused, or maybe a church no longer used for regular worship. It's now cared for by the church's Conservation Trust, who were previously called the Redundant Churches Fund. Redundant is not a very nice term, and I don't think it's the right term in these circumstances, is it really? You'd call something redundant if it's no longer needed. Well, that would disregard the beautiful nature of these buildings as a focal point in English villages, and also, of course, their use for private reflection. And there's an anonymous sonnet written in the porch here which opens, "Come on, you lot have survived worse things. Black Death, plague and 2 world wars, the Reformation, and there are scars on ancient faces, marble noses cropped and poppy heads beheaded like the king, and modern vandals too, but you've not stopped your ageless plain ability to sing of something quite indifferent to the now." Let's go inside. There's a very imposing rood screen in this church, which is designed to look medieval, but it's actually quite modern. In fact, it's only just over a century old, 1912. It was designed by F.C. Eden, an architect, and it was commissioned by a hymn writer named Athelstan Riley. He wrote the hymn, Ye Watchers and Ye Holy Ones, for example. He didn't actually live in the village, but I believe that he gave the living of the vicarage here in Fisherton, Delamere. But apparently it was so unpopular in the village that it was never painted. The parishioners were hoping that it would go somewhere else. The pews date from the same time by the same architect. I think the most mysterious part of this church, and intriguing, is this really subdued chancel, which is clearly meant to be completely separate from the much brighter nave. The stained glass is all Victorian and intended to evoke a completely different character here. The altar was given by the Bishop of Salisbury, and there is an incredibly meditative atmosphere in here. It's a building completely full of gravitas here in the heart of the English countryside. Spectacular. But there's one thing missing. Where's the organ? Here in the north transept, we have a pump organ. But that's not what I'm looking for. And this one doesn't work. No surprises there. I made a video a few weeks ago called 2024, a year of musical nightmares. And lots of people said, well, it doesn't have to be. But then when you look at this, we see this all over the place. Organs which don't work. Village church organs often do not work at all. And I think last year really highlighted this problem in my filmmaking. So there's no need for me to talk about that again. I'm afraid to say that there is a big pile of straw down here, and underneath it is what looks like a brand new sign which says Historic Church, meant to direct people to this amazing building. It's still in its cellophane, and it's covered in mouse droppings. And in the corner, there is a cabinet, just any old cabinet. Nope, this is an organ. This is a portable harmonium. It might only have one stop. It's got handles on both sides so it can be moved around. Might have been used by the preacher, but the pedals are flat. That means it doesn't work. And I can't have any look at it because there's so much stuff around it which I don't want to move. But where's the pipe organ? You need a pipe organ in a church like this, don't you? You can't project to the back of a church with a reed organ very well. So where's the pipe organ? They have a glorious rood screen, a west gallery, plenty of pews, but no church organ. Well, where did it go? Was it dismantled, broken up, chucked away? To find the answer to that question, I'll have to do some more research. It's rare for a pipe organ to survive the closure of a village church. Normally they are just too cumbersome and fragile to be saved. But the church guide here at St Nicholas written perhaps 25 years ago, tells me everything I need to know. Looks like the storm has beaten me, but at least I got to show you the inside of that wonderful church, and we now know where the organ's gone. So I think it's time to head home, dry off, and then tomorrow I'll go off in search of the Fichton de la Mer pipe organ, which now resides in Dorset. Now that was a surprise to me. Back in 1982, St. Nicholas's Church was declared, in the words of the time, pastorally redundant. Wow. But somebody had the foresight 2 years later to take the organ to pieces, carefully, I imagine, and deliver it 50 miles away to Dorset, where it now resides in a church in Piddle Hinton, which is just fantastic. And there's no surprises that next week's video will include my demonstration of that very cheerful church organ. But we have some horrifying statistics. Apparently, one church is closed every day, and an estimated 4 church organs are broken up, or shall we say smashed up, and chucked into landfill every single week. Mortifying. But I think the problem is they're not given the recognition and the significance they deserve as musical and artistic machines because there's nobody around to play them. How many organists do you know? Music generally is not given the importance that it deserves, even though it's quite possibly the single most comforting art form in the entire universe. Wow. Well, let's hope that this channel maybe inspires some more people to play the church organ. I really hope so. If you are enjoying these Sunday productions, then you can help support me if you would like to. If you look forward to this every Sunday, and I try my best to make sure I succeed, then you can donate to my work using my PayPal link. Just go underneath this video and you'll see the PayPal link there, which takes you to the Salisbury Organist donations page. And from there you can leave a small donation to support me and my work so that I can continue to make these videos. I would be truly appreciative and grateful. And if you'd like to support me a different way, then just head to my website, benmaytonmusic.co.uk, and from there on the contact page you'll see the address to send a cheque to, and it would be so thoughtful of you to do that, and I would be incredibly grateful for your help. Thank you. For now, it's very easy to end today's video. I've talked at length in previous films about the problem of church organs being broken up and destroyed. So I simply want to show you what a church organ can do, and all I need to do to demonstrate that is play you one of the greatest hymns ever composed. And that's called Nearer, My God, to Thee. Until next time, when I'll see you in Dorset, cheerio.